الله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ومولانا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعلى أهل بيت الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين لا سيما بقية الله في الأرضين روحي وروح العالمين له الفداء رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. Brothers and sisters, it's a great honor to be here, and before anything, I congratulate you on the birth of Imam al-Ridha. This wonderful Imam, this wonderful embodiment of Allah's divine names, his birth is something we really want to celebrate, commemorate. We want to kind of get a picture of what it might be like for Imam al-Kadhim at that time. Remember that when the Imam is born, for Imam al-Kadhim, he's seeing the Ali of the time. The person who is going to guide the resistance after the Imam is gone. We have numerous ahadith that our Ahlul Bayt, they knew the knowledge of the past, the present, and the future. He knows what lies ahead for this ummah, the difficulties, and he knows this is the champion, this is the person who will carry the flag of Islam in those difficult times. Two of the difficult situations that Tashayyu face, and again, when we read history, when we think about history, we see where would we be at that time. Two difficult tasks or challenges that Tashayyu faced at that time. One was an external challenge, and the other was an internal challenge. Internally confusion, externally an enemy who was working to snuff the life out of the resistance. When I say the external challenge, I mean Ma'mun, the Khalifa at that time. For the most sinister of reasons, he had chosen to make Imam al-Ridha the crown prince. His reasons were so evil, so cunning, so diabolical. Even some of his inner circle didn't know why he would do that. To the extent that some of the inner circle refused to make bay'ah. They thought it was a strategic error. Why would you put this person, Imam al-Ridha, in as your crown prince? Out of love and support for Ma'mun, they refused to make bay'ah, and some were jailed over it. Okay? So even in the inner circles, people were confused. I am sure there were some naive Muslims at the same time who were rejoicing. Alhamdulillah, Ahlul Bayt, they've been given position, recognized as the crown prince. So some naive Muslims completely confused, even the enemies confused. And at that time of confusion, the person who would guide the ummah to the promised land would be Imam al-Ridha. So imagine the face of Imam al-Kadhim when he's looking at this young person. Why was that so difficult? Why is it so difficult to face an intelligent and cunning enemy like Ma'mun? Allah bless you. One of the reasons is this, that we learn from our ahadith that your weakest enemy is the one who shows the enmity, the one who's there snarling, showing teeth. I will cut you in half. That's actually the weakest of your enemies. Let's read the hadith. This is from Imam Askari alayhi salam. This is what he says. أَضْعَفُ الْأَعْدَى كَيْدًا. The weakest of your enemy in stratagems is the one man adhara adawatah. The person who shows you he's an enemy. I'm an open enemy. I want to kill you. I want to cut your head off. ISIS. Right? That's all okay. That's easy. We've got that one. That's not difficult. The challenge is what? The enemy who smiles. The enemy who's humble, quiet, polite, akhlaq. That enemy is the one who's dangerous. Okay? Ma'mun is inviting the Imam, insisting that he take power, the right of Ahlul Bayt. You are the alim, you are the knowledgeable. This is a big challenge. So we need a wise leader who can take the standard of Islam and guide Tashayyu through this challenge. That's only one of the challenges. And again, there's so many. If we wanted to just spend tonight talking about the life of Imam al-Ridha, the lessons we could learn from his life, how long would we have to talk? One night obviously wouldn't be enough. Another external challenge, and again, I'm giving this to you brothers and sisters, sharing what's been shared with me, that we can go then and do research. Find out what happened. How did the Imam handle this difficulty? What did the Imam do that was so strategic and so effective that Ma'mun ended up having to murder the Imam? Right? When we say that Ma'mun was this clever person, arranged everything, supposed to be easy victory for Kufr, but the Imam beat him at his own game to the extent that finally Ma'mun preemptively said, no, I've got to murder him. The Imam's winning. I've got to end his life. And that's a question for us, actually. I don't want to give, well, maybe I'll give you part of the answer. Maybe, it's Eid, night where we have Eid, so let's not be stingy. Let's think about this, though. Let's think about this hadith. Beautiful hadith from Imam Hassan. He says, مَا مِنَّا إِلَّا مَقْتُولٌ أَوْ مَسْمُومٌ. There is no member of us, Ahlul Bayt, except that this person be murdered, they be killed by the sword, they fight a bloody battle like Karbala, or masmoom. This person will be poisoned. The question is this: why would they be poisoned? Why would these wonderful people who are anwar, their nur, why would the enemies take it upon themselves to murder these individuals? Every single one of these individuals. What was it that the Ahlul Bayt were doing? Was it because they were related to the Holy Prophet, their kinship? Was it because they had claims, like I said, we have in numerous ahadith that the Ahlul Bayt knew the knowledge of the past, the present, the future. Was that reason for someone to go over and kill the Ahlul Bayt? Was it their generosity? Because the Ahlul Bayt were so generous. Was that the reason? What was the reason? If we can really answer this question, and then after that become part of the solution, we can definitely hasten the reappearance of the Imam of the time. Let's connect this birthday of Imam Rida, his struggle, and we only talked about one part of his struggle, with the struggle of our living Imam. The one who's watching this gathering. The one who knows each one of us by name. We have in a hadith that the Ahlul Bayt say, not only that we pray for you, that one of the hadith, the Ahlul Bayt say, that if you make dua, this is the Imam of the time for you, the person who's narrating the hadith is Ali alayhi salam, but it's true for all Ahlul Bayt. He says that if you make dua, we say Ameen. Ahlul Bayt say Ameen for you. We're not alone in this. He says if you don't make dua, we make dua for you. The Imam who knows each and every one of us and is waiting on us to see when is the time that Allah will grant him the mercy to come back. When do we want the Imam to return, you and I? Why was this such a challenge though? Why would they kill the Imam? What happened is that we believe the Ahlul Bayt are all one nur. All one nur. When we look at the lives of the Ahlul Bayt, we see one individual operating under different circumstances for 250 years or so, trying to accomplish one task. From the time of the Holy Prophet up until the time of our Imam and the other Imams before them and the Lady Fatima, all of them one nur, all trying to accomplish one thing. What are they trying to accomplish? The same thing that Imam al-Mahdi will accomplish. They're all trying to establish the kingdom of God on the face of the earth. Bring mankind, liberate mankind, and bring mankind to the promised land. The same thing all of the other Anbiya were doing. They were all trying to bring us to be under the wilayah of Allah, to have paradise on earth. All of them trying to do this. And Imam al-Rida was working for this reason also. So what happens is, the Tawaghit, the Tawhut of the time, Ma'mun saw him as a threat. He's working to establish God's kingdom. He's gathering people, he's pushing, right? No, preemptive strike. And he snuffs the life out of our Imam. So, one part of it was, again, for the happiness of Imam al-Qadhi, looking at this person who would take the flag of Islam and guide the Ummah through those turbulent times. Another test, another big test in the time of Imam al-Rida was the Waqifiyya movement. A very dangerous, deviant movement. You guys have either read up on it, or you will, or will be explained to you, where some of the wukala, some of the representatives of the Imam al-Qadhi, important religious figures, they became deviant. Wukala, people you would go and give your homes to, leaders of the community, scholars, knowledgeable people. These people became deviant. Not only that the fitna, the internal fitna was so terrible, not only did they stumble, other arkan and pillars of tashayyu stumbled. Read about it in history. Other leading scholars, they were confused. What is the situation really? Did the imamat end with Imam al-Kadhim? Will he return? Did he go into ghaiba? Tashayyu, facing a terrible enemy like Ma'mun outside, and internally this kind of a fitna. Now again, it's a challenge. What does one do when you find I'm in a situation where Muslims are fighting one another? Shias are fighting one another, right? The time of Imam al-Kadhim. Both claiming wilaya of Ahlul Bayt, both wearing the turban, both saying we are Shia, both professing love of Ahlul Bayt, and both diametrically opposed. How can one, and what does one say in such a situation? I remember hearing once they said that in the Islamic Republic of Iran there was a university professor. And the university professor is over there, he's giving his lesson or whatever like that, and he asks the students, what's the answer to this issue I just brought up? For instance, and one of the students said, the answer, professor, is this. The teacher tells him, Barakallah fi. Next, the other guy, another student, stands up and says, teacher, Ustad, actually I think the answer is this, the exact opposite. The teacher tells him, Barakallah fi. A third guy, kind of smart guy, he looks, he sees that, Ustad, you said, well, he said it was right, you told him Barakallah fi. He said the exact opposite. You told him Barakallah fi. He said Barakallah fi, and you also. So, are we like that? What happens when you have two groups of Muslims, they're diametrically opposed? They're both claiming Ahlul Bayt. Both leading the cause. Is everything okay? Or is there obviously haqq? Now there's guidance from Ali in what to do in such a situation. Guidance from Amir al-Mu'mineen. If we're faced with such a situation, we don't only think of the Waqifiyya movement of something that happened a long time ago, but let's say we're faced with a similar challenge now, what do? Guidance from Ali. Remember this, the mu'mineen, the believers, the followers of truth, are only defeated, historically, when we've not been able to determine who our true enemies are. When we're confused, when we don't know, when we can't focus our attention on the true enemy, we take others who are not really the enemy to be the enemy, that's when we lose. When we've been able to identify our enemies, that's when we've been able to be victorious. So keep that in mind. What do we do? How do we, as youth, guide others in a time of fitna? This is from Amir al-Mu'mineen. He says, there is a war that is going on between you and people of the Qibla. Amir al-Mu'mineen, Nahjubillah. He says, no one, وَلَا يَحْمِلُ هَذَا الْعَلَمْ, nobody can carry the standard, nobody can carry the flag of Islam in such a situation except people who have the following three traits. لَا يَحْمِلُ هَذَا الْعَلَمْ إِلَّا, except for people who are أَهْلُ الْبَصَرِ, people who have insight. I'm not following scholars because they're scholars blindly. I've thought about it. There's a reason. I understand what haqq is. I've got insight. I'm not confused even if others get confused. I know the direction of Islam. Ahlul Basar. In addition to that, what else? Was-sabr, people of patience. When times get tough, when people are saying things about me, I don't abandon the right path. Sabr. What else? Wal-ilm bi-mawaqi al-haqq. And I know where truth lies, where truth is. If I see two people, both wearing turbans, both saying the opposite thing, I know where truth is. I can identify them because I know the truth. Very important. So, the brilliant leadership of Imam al-Ridha was one that would carry tashayyu forth in these turbulent times. Okay? Him and his loyal followers is something else too. We don't think of the mission of Islam, the mission of our Imam, as being something that's just a mu'jiza, a miracle. The Imam will come, the 313 will be there, they'll take care of everything. No, the Imam and his loyal followers Allah says in the Holy Quran, وَالَّذِي أَيَّدَكَ بِنَصْرِهِ وَبِالْمُؤْمِنِينَ. God give you assistance, divine assistance, and He assisted you through mu'mineen. Very important. You and I. It's a people's movement. Okay? So, the Imam and his loyal followers were able to take Tashayyu through those difficult times and get us to where we are now. Where now, we are very close to that final victory. Much closer than many of us may think. The final victory. Although they may think it to be far. إِنَّهُمْ يَرَوْنَهُ بَعِيدًا وَنَرَاهُ قَرِيبًا. Inshallah, that final victory is soon. Now, what we'd like to talk about tonight, brothers and sisters, is a little bit, the sister read some of the ayat of the Holy Quran. We like to start with verse number 88 from Surah Yusuf, and then take some inspiration from that verse. Very quickly, brothers and sisters, I'd like to get us up to speed about what we're going to talk about in this verse, and then after that, what's some inspiration we can take from this verse. This part of the story is like this. Yaqub alayhi salam has sent his boys, the sons of Yaqub, back to Egypt. Now this is a very difficult trip, very stressful, for several reasons. Why is this trip so difficult? Why is it so difficult to go back to Egypt? At this time, the brothers have, the last time they went to Egypt, they lost two brothers. Binyamin was captured. Apparently he stole something. The Aziz held on to him, so he's captured. The other brother staged a sit-in, the older brother perhaps, he refused to come. So last time we went to Egypt, we lost two brothers. That's one part of the mission. Secondly, our fathers told us this is a rescue mission. Rescue mission for who? Keep searching, looking for Binyamin. Not only Binyamin, Yusuf. Yusuf was lost 30 years ago, 40 years ago. Go back, it's a rescue mission. Go get them, don't give up hope. The other ayat of the Holy Quran. So it's a rescue mission. What else? You know what else? We're facing a lot of emotional distress. Our father, Yaqub, is so upset because of our actions. And at this point in the story, this isn't like verse number 97 the sister read. This isn't at that stage where they've asked for forgiveness. We never asked for forgiveness for our sin yet. Up until this part of the story, we never apologized. So deep down, psychological pressure, our father very unhappy with us. He knows, he guessed part of what we did was wrong. He's so upset with us over this latest event. At this stage in the story of Yaqub, he's lost his vision. Okay? So psychological pressure. In addition, if that wasn't enough, what other challenges? Ya Allah! The other challenge is this. We've got to go and get food for our family. We're still in those 7 years of drought, the difficult years. We've got to go and we've got to get food for our family. You know what makes it so challenging though? We don't have enough money. We're going to read the verse of Quran together. We don't have enough money. We've got to get food. We know that basically we are thought of as a caravan of thieves. I'm borrowing on your knowledge of the story of Yaqub and the last time when they're going back to face the Aziz before he reveals himself. Right? So we're known as a caravan of thieves, liars, and now we've got to go back. We don't have enough food, and we've got to beg for food from the Aziz. So think about it. If you were in their shoes, what kind of pressure would you be under? Okay? I'm going to use that to draw on the inspiration for tonight, inshallah. So, brothers and sisters, verse number 88. I'll read it, the Arabic and then the English together, inshallah, we'll read it. وَلَمَّا دَخَلُوا عَلَيْهِ. When they entered into the presence of the Aziz, قَالُوا, the boys said this, أَيُّهَا الْعَزِيز. So they're addressing the Aziz. So we've just come in, that difficulty, now we're in the presence of the Aziz. Oh Aziz, what did they tell the Aziz? مَسَّنَا وَأَهْلَنَا الضُّرُّ. That difficulty, distress has come upon us and our family. وَجِئْنَا بِبِضَاعَةٍ مُزْجَاةٍ. We've come with a meager share. We haven't come with, let's say it costs for 11 camels, 12 camels, for instance. Let's say it costs God knows how many gold pieces. We haven't come with the amount that we need. فَأَوْفِ لَنَا الْكَيْلَ. Now we basically have to beg. We're still asking you to give us the full share. We haven't come with the right amount of money. We're coming with that kind of a background. We're known as being thieves. Our brother is stolen. We're liars. And now we're saying, without enough money, please give us the full measure. وَتَصَدَّقْ عَلَيْهِ. Then it really becomes difficult for a proud person to ask for sadaqah. وَتَصَدَّقْ عَلَيْنَا. Give us sadaqah. How difficult. Why? إِنَّ اللَّهَ يَجْزِي الْمُتَصَدِّقِينَ. That Allah rewards those who give sadaqah. So imagine the difficulty. Now we're in the presence of the Aziz. So a couple of points, because quickly we'd like to look for what's some inspiration we can get from these verses. One of them is this, very quickly. This state of begging, brothers and sisters, is reserved for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We don't want to beg anybody else. We don't want to be like the brothers, be in a situation where we're actually begging. There might be a time when I need help financially. I might need to borrow some money from you. Right? It might be my responsibility to reach out my hand and to borrow money. How do I do it? In a dignified fashion. I don't say sadaqah. Brother, sister, give me a loan. For instance, give me a loan. With dignity. Knowing it's in God's hands, not emotional blackmail. I need that money. You got to give it to me. I lent you some money. Emotional blackmail. No. The mu'min, trusting in God, have a responsibility to speak to you. Brother, sister, please loan me some. That begging only for God. Okay? Next one, pointer. For us as practicing mu'mineen and mu'minat, we do keep that begging in mind when it comes to God. This is a challenge for us, brothers and sisters. As practicing believers, when I go to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I don't want to go with attitude. You know what happens sometimes to somebody like me? Allah gives a little bit of tawfiq to do some good deeds, stay away from some sins. Next thing I know, when I come to plead to God, there's a little bit of attitude. You know, Allah, it's me again. Salatul Layl last night, alhamdulillah. For instance, right? A believer coming to God impressed with their actions. Oh, how Allah hates that. A believer comes, you're actually impressed with your good deeds? You know how scary the hadith are about that? That a sinner is preferred over the person who has the problem of ujub. Right? I'm impressed with myself. Let me read you what the Holy Prophet used to say in one of his dua. He says, Holy Prophet speaking, As'aluka, Prophet begging Allah, As'aluka mas'alatil miskinil mustaqeen. I'm begging you, the impoverished person, more than that, وَأَبْتَحِلُ إِلَيْكَ إِبْتِهَالَ الْمُذْنِبِ الْبَائِسِ الظَّلِيلِ. That humiliated sinner. That's how, when the Prophet's begging Allah, not, I'm the Prophet, I've done so much khair in the way of God. No, I see myself as a sinner, as nobody. Very important for spiritual progression that the person's not impressed with their actions. Whatever I've done, وَمَا تَوْفِيقِي إِلَّا بِاللَّهِ. Nothing from me, not because of how great I am. God forbid, and God cut that tawfiq. Okay? The next one though. Remember what happens in our verse? In our verse, we have a group of Muslims. By the way, the story of Yaqub and the sons of Yaqub and what they did is a group of Muslims who ended up on the right path. They weren't kuffar. The brothers of Yaqub weren't kuffar. Muslims. What happens is these Muslims were in such a bad state financially, they end up going to someone who they don't know is a Muslim, begging and explaining how difficult life is. Save us, help us, give us sadaqah. Right? The verse. Okay? What lesson can we get from that? One lesson, brothers and sisters, is that we want, as best as possible, to avoid such situations. We don't want to be so poor, we end up in a situation where we forget some of our Islamic principles. Sometimes the reason people fail Islamically is because the dunya, they don't have the dunya, the test comes, the trial comes, Allah's testing. Do I really believe Allah's my raziq? And sometimes I'm compromised because of these difficulties. So one part of the strategy would be to put myself in a situation where I'm not compromised financially. I've got enough to take care of myself. I'm not saying be super rich, live, worship the dunya. No, I'm not saying that. But to have enough so that when I'm tested, I'm able to maintain my honor. I don't have to beg. The brothers in the ayah, You have to beg. They're in that situation. We've got families to feed. I don't want to be in such a situation. I want to be financially capable. I don't want it to be that if I am tested with faqr, with poverty, that it's because of my own dumb decisions. That sometimes, this isn't about you guys, by the way. And if I'm a little humorous at times, then forgive me first of all. Right? It's not because the situation is necessarily humorous, but just to keep people like myself, my attention wanders. Sometimes I kind of need to stay involved. They say that with Americans, right, the Japanese, for instance, they would save, let's say, 30% more of what they earn. Japanese, right? They say with Americans, sometimes they spend 30% more than what they have. Right? They live with their credit cards above their means. On the outsides, it looks really good. I'm living the American dream. Internally, you and I know it's a struggle. Those car payments, struggling. Right? Whereas the mu'min should be clever. Sometimes it's dumb decisions. The reason I'm struggling financially is because I'm living above and beyond my means. I can't afford this right now. Islam says be content. So, what happens is that poverty is such that this is what Imam Ali says about it. He says, Al-faqru yukhrisul fatin an hujjatih. One of the problems of poverty, not having enough, he says that sometimes poverty makes the wise person be unable to explain their proof, unable to speak up for themselves, unable to defend themselves. I'm speaking to my boss, the big CEO. He made a mistake, she made a mistake, but sometimes because I'm like, well, my risk is in their hands, I can't get the boss angry. Sometimes faqr, need, keeps me from speaking up. You know what the middle one he says? He says the person who's poor is a stranger in his own homeland. I don't have money, people don't respect me, don't look out for me. So what we're trying to do are come up with some strategies. Faqr, which is this terrible, which could have believers go over and compromise their faith. How can we stay away from this? Right? One part of it being that contentment, living, not living beyond our means, working and putting ourselves in a position where we do have some of the dunya. This isn't, by the way, worship of the dunya. We have a hadith, this is from Ahlul Bayt, right? From Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam. Sallu ala Muhammad. Get a little water. Sallu ala So what happens is, the Ahlul Bayt have told us, having the dunya, for this reason, that I can protect myself, protect my faith, keep up my principles, protect my Islam, actually that kind of dunya is good. What's the hadith say? نِعْمَ الْعَوْنَ الدُّنْيَا عَلَى طَلَبِ الْآخِرَةِ. What an excellent help having the dunya is when it comes to seeking the hereafter. It's actually a good thing. I do want to have that much of the dunya. I'm not worshipping the dunya by having them. Okay? Next part. Now obviously that's a long discussion. We have to move quickly. What else? Let's say you ask me this question. How can I be mentally tough if I don't have the dunya? There are some people, the reason I'm able to handle myself in difficult situations and my faith isn't compromised is because I have plan B. I'm not worried. If I lose my job, there's more where that came from. I've got a Swiss bank account. That's how come. Another time a brother or sister says, no, I want to be mentally strong, even if I don't have the dunya. How can I do that? Beautiful hadith now from Imam Ali. Strategy for us. How can we protect ourselves, maintain our faith? Right? Have this mental toughness based on belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Imam gives us some rules about human beings. He says this. He says, need whoever you please. Takun asira. Wahtaj ila man shi'at. Takun asira. He says, feel needy towards whoever you please. Need whoever you please, you'll be a prisoner of that person. If I need you, if I depend on you, if I think you're my raziq, then I'm a prisoner of you. If I think my boss, when I go to work, I'm like, there's so many others like me. He could get rid of me. He could fire me. My risk will be cut. Whoever you feel needy towards, you're a prisoner towards. Now, even if my boss tells me something which is unpleasant, because I'm his prisoner, I'll keep my mouth shut. Because I'm needy. I don't want to lose my job. He's got my risk. Right? Choose, brothers and sisters. The Imam's telling us, choose who you're needy of, you'll be a prisoner of that person. The mu'min or mu'minah wants to be needy only of Allah. I'm not fearful of anybody else, only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The next part of the hadith is interesting also. He says, again, this is how we can be mentally tough when it comes to these situations. He says, وَاسْتَغْنِ عَمَّنْ شِئْتَ كُنْ نَذِيرًا. He says, feel free from need. From whoever you choose, you'll be that person's equal. The opposite of the first situation. In the first situation, because I'm needy of my boss, or my superior, or my college professor, or the person who's going to give me a grade, or anything else, because I'm needy, then I'm a prisoner of that person. He says, feel free of need. From whoever you choose, you'll be an equal to that person. If I really have true trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, my rizq comes from Him. I'm an equal to my boss. We'll have a conversation. Hey Steve, talking to my boss. How are you doing? How are the kids? Right? Because I'm an equal now. I don't need him. Yes, he's my boss. I treat him with respect like I treat everybody with respect. But I don't need him. My rizq comes from somewhere else. Yeah, so what's up, Steve? Everything okay? How are the children? Family all right? Because we're equals, the Imam says. Equals. Because my rizq comes from God. Right? It helps even when we're dealing with there's some people who are intimidated. When I'm hanging around other mu'mineen or mu'minat, and they make a lot more money than me, I feel out of place because they're so much more rich. I need them. I need a donation for the masjid. I've got to keep fulan brother, fulan sister on my side because they're a cash cow. For the sake of God. There's another time, no. Rizq comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I come over to you. By the way, do you know that I drive a BMW? You're like, brother, alhamdulillah, Allah bless you, inshallah, more. No. By the way, did I share with you that I take home $500,000 every year? Like, bro, I'm not interested. I don't care. Feel free of need of whoever you choose. You're an equal to that person. We can sit and talk. Oh, really? How's the business going? Because we're equals. My rizq comes from God, so does yours. Feel free of need of whoever you choose. You'll be an equal to that person. Imam Ali. Now, we want to do something else. This is Friday. And by the way, I've heard that this Friday program, this isn't the first of your Friday programs. By the grace of Allah, we have continuous Friday programs going. And we're told in our hadith to devote one day to our religion. One day that we learn about Islam. We're reminded, sometimes it's not new information. Remind me about what I know previously. I want to be told to fear God. I'm in a situation, I'm being distracted from Allah. I want to know what my responsibilities are. I want to get strength by seeing other mu'mineen and mu'minat, praying in jama'ah. Right? On Fridays, one of the things we can do is to discuss strategy. I'd like to discuss a little bit of strategy with you, brothers and sisters. We'll think of the masjid as our war room. Right? Strategy. Don't call the FBI. FBI? There's a Sheikh here. He called the masjid war room. No. Let's talk about a little strategy. For the Imam. Relax, guys. What's the strategy? One of the things that we want to do, now remember I said on Thursday, on Fridays we gather, okay? When we have limited time and resources, we want to focus on the youth. We want to focus on the youth, okay? The hadith I want to share with you is from Imam Salih. He says that, or the Imam is explaining, one of the mu'mineen had gone to Basra in Iraq. The Imam's asked him, he says, in Basra, how is the spread of tashayyu? The man tells him, the companion tells him, the spread of tashayyu over there is slow. Shiism is not spreading very fast over here. The Imam gives strategic advice. He says, alayka bil ahdath. Focus on the youth. He says the youth, أسرع إلى كل خير. They're more quick to run towards khair, goodness. We want to focus on our youth. When we're thinking about strategy, okay? Now, our strategy the question I want to ask you is this. What can we do? We've learned from that verse that sometimes being impoverished can lead to compromising the faith. Compromising the faith. Compromising Islamic principles. One time, what we talked about previously, was how could I, as a Muslim, individually, be in such a situation where I don't compromise my faith. I have enough of the dunya to survive. Or I'm mentally tough even if I don't have the dunya. Now, strategy. What can we do, brothers and sisters, and let's think about this together, to make sure the next generation of Shias is financially in a better situation than we are? That's strategy now. We're not thinking only of myself. What can we do? What policies can we set in place, collectively, individually, so the next generation of Shias are in a better situation financially? We don't want them to be weak financially and then end up compromising their religion. What can we do to fix this without creating people who are worshipping the dunya? Right? That the dunya has made them slaves of the dunya. Their financial position isn't actually a ni'mah, it's a niqmah. There's a very interesting story we learn in the ahadith of Ahlul Bayt about a man named Tha'labi in the time of the Holy Prophet. This is an example of someone who got the dunya, and then once they got the dunya, that didn't bring them closer to God. Tha'labi. Who's Tha'labi? In the time of the Holy Prophet, there was a man who used to come to the masjid regularly, offer his prayers, worship, everything. And Tha'labi would complain to the Holy Prophet about poverty. I'm not in a good situation, I need help financially, things to be better. Finally, he kept insisting till the Prophet gave him 2 pieces of money. Let's say 2 dirhams, 2 dinars. He got that, and Tha'labi went to work. Tha'labi invested, Tha'labi started a business started getting good. And as Tha'labi's financial status grew, you would see less and less of Tha'labi in the masjid. Let's say in the beginning, all 5 prayers, he would be there praying on time, everything. Then slowly, no, less prayers, less prayers. Finally, business so good, I move out of Medina. Finally, it gets so good, Tha'labi stops paying zakat. Business is too good. Brothers and sisters, we never want to get to a stage where we become professional sinners, right? We sin and it's good to us. We're professionals at it. Ice water runs in our veins. I remember once hearing in the Islamic Republic, in the Islamic Republic, they're not all malaika, right? I don't know.
Majority.
Majority are malaika? I don't know. I wouldn't. Inshallah. They're not all malaika. In other places also, in Pakistan, they're not all malaika. In Iraq, they're not all malaika. You guys, inshallah, you're all malaika. I'm not one of the malaika. Okay? So what happens, this guy, he was a thief in Iran. And he did something amazing. He burglarized the couple's house. That's not amazing. This elderly couple, he steals from them. But what happened was that he stole the rug that the husband and wife, the elderly couple, were sleeping on. The old man said, now this is something amazing. How did you steal? We were sleeping, let's say, on one of these Persian rugs. How did you steal the rug we were sleeping on? He said, what I did, these Iranians, some of them are so zarang. He said, what happened? He said, what I did was I laid down in between you and your wife. And I would roll to one side, bump you a little bit. Roll to the other side, bump your wife a little bit. Roll to the other side, bump you, bump your wife up, till I got you off, rolled up the rug, and I took it. A professional sinner. I'm so good at sinning, it's easy. Ice water in my veins. Terrible, dangerous. Okay? So he had gotten to this stage. Now he's not paying zakat, Tha'labi. So what happened with Tha'labi? He's not paying zakat, refuses. The Holy Prophet says, okay, Tha'labi, can I have my 2 dirhams back? Oh, why not? There's millions of dirhams. Send 2 dirhams to the Holy Prophet. He sent it back to the Holy Prophet, and then Tha'labi's business started to go down. Go down. The barakah gone from the business, till finally you start seeing Tha'labi in the masjid again. Salat time, Tha'labi's there. But we're not brothers and sisters. When I say making the next generation more wealthy, more well-off than this generation, I'm not talking about raising a generation of Tha'labis, right? Silver spoon in their mouth, spoiled kids, I drive $1 million car, my dad's got loads of money. No. We're talking about skills and a generation that's committed to Islamic principles. Yes, we have money, but that hasn't made us far from God. How can we do that? What can we do as a strategy to fix that? Let's think about that. Could it be career counseling? That some of us, for instance, we're in school. We've gone to certain universities. We tell our brothers and sisters, first of all, once we find out they have a halal profession, how to get ahead, which professors to go to. We help people get out of debt. There are ways of getting out of debt. Right? Sit our brothers and sisters down, explain to them, so that the next generation is stronger financially. Make sure they have jobs. Tell people to invest. Get land. Get your own homes, right? Different things that we could do, right? And brothers and sisters, another thing to keep in mind is not to do this based on ethnic lines. Based on ethnic lines, my fellow Iranians come over. My fellow Pakistan, or any other African American, reverse racism. No. We don't want to do that. But before I get to that, one other point about the finances, right? Because you guys are going to be earning money, right? That next generation, inshallah, will have more money. One thing to keep in mind is this. You want to definitely make sure everybody's paying khums. Even if you owe $5, you have $5 in the end of the year, 1/5 of that is God's money. There's no Shia or Sunni who can deny that khums was wajib at one time. Right? There's difference in us with the details, but there's none of them that can deny, no, khums was there, is there. Ayat of the Holy Quran. Right? Surah 8, verse number 41. In addition to that, one of the tests on the Day of Judgment is this. One of the most difficult stages on the Day of Judgment will be this. When the sahib of khums, Hadith says, the person who owns khums, let's say Imam Mahdi, comes over on the Day of Judgment and says, Rabbi khums. Oh Allah, this is the day, ultimate judgment. I want my khums. To face Imam al-Mahdi and have not paid his money. The explanation some ulama give us is this, based on that verse of the Holy Quran. You can read it yourselves and see what the verse says. From everything you earn, from the beginning, as soon as you make money, everything you earn, 1/5 of the money you earn is God's, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah allows me and you to use His money, that 1/5, in our needs for up to a year. Once that year is over, God says, if you have my 1/5 left of your money, give me my 1/5. That's my 1/5, right? Which is why if we spend that 1/5 on something haram, we have to pay khums on that. If I do israf with my own money, 1/5 of that got to get khums on. Because God hasn't let me spend His money on israf. My own money, I spend it haram, whatever. But God's money, so what happens is we owe the imam money, even if it's $5. We don't want to face him on that last day. But the point I wanted to make was this, that while we're talking about strategy, make sure this is not something we do for our fellow believers who share our same ethnic or racial background. As soon as I see that you're one of the Shia of Ali ibn Abi Talib, one of the Shia of Imam al-Rida, wherever your background is from, the same idea of building, thinking, planning, how can we get the next generation of Shias to be more well off than this generation, is something that should automatically go in place. One of the strategies of kufr was to divide us along these ethnic lines. You're from this side of the river, I'm from the other side. Some Muslims are so naive, they think of themselves, for instance, as Americans first and then Muslims. First I'm an American, they'll talk about the policy in Iraq. Should we go in and give strikes? We go in and give strikes? Allow me to quote Malcolm X. One thing Malcolm X said was this. He said, if a kitten was born in an oven, would you call it a biscuit? Just because I'm born, I don't know. Islam, the ideology, where do I come from? Where are my loyalties as a Muslim? Okay? And we have a great ways to work on that. Right? One of the ways we'll know that we're close to the victory is when one day we break past these man-made barriers and you see interracial marriage. That's when you'll know we're close to finally getting it together. When we see that happening, right now, you mentioned that. Test it out. Right? Or God will go over, I see an excellent sister, I'll go over to my mom. Excellent sister, does she have taqwa? Yes. Is she chaste? Doesn't believe in being friends with non-Muslims? Yes. Is she honest? Yes. All those traits? Yes. Can she sing lullabies in Urdu? No. Off the list. Or the sister might do, no, alhamdulillah, excellent brother, wonderful. Can we get, yes. He provides for us, yes. Taqwa, yes. Does he like tehete? No. He doesn't? I'll make my milk haram on you. Right? Some of these mothers. Make my milk haram. So, brothers and sisters, let's say that let's work beyond that. Kind of break down these barriers. We ask that Allah make us individuals who are able to learn lessons from Quran and Sunnah. May He protect all of the believers, you believers, on this day. All of the believers, all of those people who believe in the wilayah of Imam al-Rida and Ahlul Bayt. May He also protect the mustad'afeen. There's mustad'afeen all over the world, in Palestine, in other places. The mu'mineen, we know about the situation in Iraq. We hope the mu'mineen over there are victorious when it comes to ISIS. Mu'mineen, mu'minat all over the world. All of our ulama, maraja, and especially the leaders. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Question and answer? Okay, I mean, I'm willing, but I feel people that might have been here a long time. We can take a few questions, and then I'll try and hustle off the stage before people get...
Grab the microphone.
You're going to grab the microphone?
Somebody has a question.
Yeah. And if they don't have a question...
It's the wireless, brother. Give it for the Sheikh and take the wireless.
Okay.
Please raise your hand if there is any question.
Bismillah. We're going to take 5 questions, so this is number 1. If that, otherwise I'm going to get down. Bismillah.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for
Walaikum
that. So going back to that issue of how do you balance it so that the future generations are financially stable, but still not worshiping material goods. You mentioned a couple of things like teaching them responsibility with money. Don't make sure they don't forget their homes, their zakat, stuff like that. But is it possible that there's anything else that we might need to do? Maybe if that's it's possible that maybe there's people who pay their homes, they pay their zakat, but they're still very materialistic and attached. Is there any other precautions that you might recommend?
Well, both precautions and strategies. Like excellent question, right? Let's follow up to what I discussed. We didn't actually talk about, well, how will we get it done? That's something for us to think about. What kind of profession should we get into? Can we open up businesses, hire our own, help people when it comes to taxes and accounting, right? There's a lot of strategies. But what the brother was asking was something else. That, okay, when it comes to strategies for keeping people from getting attached to money, so that people don't become people who start worshiping the dunya, are there any other strategies? 100%. 100%. And obviously we can't even talk about all of them. It's not even fair to start thinking about them. But one of the things we could do, brothers and sisters, just one, is the idea of building up this state of intidhar. Intidhar. When we say it's a state of intidhar, that means day and night. We're told in a hadith to expect the faraj, expect delivery day and night. Do you know what that means to expect delivery day and night? I want to give you one example of what that is. So now we have a mu'min or mu'mina, financially doing well. Alhamdulillah, I made it. Promising medical career. I've just started my business. I bought my own house, right? But I'm in the state of intidhar. What does the state of intidhar mean? What the state of intidhar means, if I'm expecting the return of the Imam day and night, it means I can all walk away from it in a second. Let me give you an example of what that means. Now again, when I talk about this example in history, brothers and sisters, go back in history and see where you would be at that time. Where you would be at that time. I want to take you back to the night where Amirul Mu'mineen came to the door asking the Mu'mineen to make bay'ah to him and to support him. He came with the lady Fatima and Hassan Hussein to the doors of the Mu'mineen, the people who had been in Badr. And he said that come over and meet me in such and such a place. He said come with your head shaved. Now think about where would we be at that time? Remember how difficult it was at that time, that a tribe had been brought into Medina at that time, right after the time of the Prophet. There were people who were burned alive. The guys screaming, "Ana Muslim," burned alive for resisting. And at that time, you're told to come over with your head shaved to defend the right of Ali. The thing about shaving your head is you can't grow your hair back even, right? So you're going to come over, face the authorities with a sword, head shaved. I'm part of the party of Ali. You know how many people came? 4. How many people made bay'ah in Ghadir? How many people were even there from the Battle of Badr? 24 promised, 4 people came. People like Ammar didn't make it. Okay? So when we talk about intidhar, that's what how many of us as sisters, right? Would tell our husbands, Muslim comes to Kufa, right? Ubaydullah is promising, you come out, the army of Yazid is coming, right? How many of us would tell them, when Muslims over there in Kufa by yourself, that state of intidhar, stay there. The sisters tell their sons and their husbands, don't come home, shave your head, don't come back. Hopefully you'll be shaheed. Intidhar. The man saying, my promising career is nothing to me. As soon as my imam calls me, I drop everything. I live with this reality day and night. So obviously there's much more to say about that, but that's just an idea. Any other questions? So believe me, I'm ready to let you guys go. Bismillah. This is a question from the sisters.
You talked a little bit about the believing men or women who do good deeds and how it's more pleasing to Allah if you're feeling ashamed of a sin rather than feeling
impressed with the self.
Yes. So do you have, I mean, obviously probably each person has their own personal guideline that they can do to keep themselves in check, like if they are starting to get a little haughty with themselves. But do you have any general advice in addition to maybe?
So let's keep this in mind, because again, this comes to us as practicing believers. By the way, the answer is not commit sin. Well, let me just commit sin and feel guilty. No. The idea is, how can I do good, but not be impressed with the self? Right? Because what happens is some people, divine blessings cause them to get further from God. Now that I have a secular education, let's say, right? I'll give you another example. Secular education. I'm a sister, for instance, or a brother, and I have a PhD, or how do I treat other people? Let's say I'm dealing with somebody who is only a high school graduate. Do I tell that person, you can't understand me, I'm educated? Okay? That divine, has that made me arrogant? Right? Has the blessing of performing some minuscule good deeds, now I think of when I'm talking to somebody else who's committing sins, I'm better. Inside my heart, I don't say anything, but Allah guide him or her. Right? Is that, seriously? Do I think I'm better? Okay. Now, this is saying, okay, well, what's some strategies? How can I be a person? I'm a practicing believer. I'm trying to do the right thing. I don't think I'm better than anyone. Again, this is a huge subject. One piece of advice of this is from Ahlul Bayt. This is what the Imam tells us. He says, this is from Imam Ali. He says, the person who forgets their sins, considers the mistakes of others to be huge. If I'm a person who forgets, if I start only looking at my good side, and by the way, we should look at the good side. We're grateful to Allah. We haven't lost hope in ourselves. But if I only look at my good side, I forget the problems and issues that I have. I've got character flaws. I've got things I've got to work on, areas to improve. If I don't, I forget that. He says this person will consider the mistakes of others intolerable. You'll have a husband or wife, right? They'll forget their problems and their issues, right? For instance, they'll tell their husband to get his act together, right? I give you a reminder, get your act together. He hasn't gotten his act together. You disgust me, right? The sister might say that, right? But a sister who's the opposite way, or a brother who's the opposite way, who's working on themselves, trying to go for refinement of the soul in addition, what they'll say is, it's so difficult for me to get rid of my own flaws, right? Anyways, just think about it. How difficult is it for us to change our own character? Can I do it by snapping my fingers? Should I expect somebody else, if I tell them once, snap your fingers, get it together, I can't do it, right? So the person who focuses on their own flaws instead of seeing their own good deeds, who sees whatever tawfiq they have as being divine grace, I'm nothing, it's all God. This person will find it easier to be a little bit more humble, more realistic, right, about their good deeds. And compare ourselves to those who have done so much more. We'd be ashamed to call ourselves mu'min if we compare ourselves to those individuals. Brothers and sisters, I really apologize. I feel like I've been keeping you guys too long. Inshallah, we'll stop the session now. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.